You're listening to Exposure. It is XFM. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Manic Street Preachers. Jackie Collins' Existential Question Time, taken from the last album, Journal for Plague Lovers. And I'm very pleased to say that the Manics are back. The new album is out this week, Postcards from a Young Man. And tonight is going to get the Exposure album playback treatment with Nicky from the band. Hello, Nicky.
Guten Abend.
Good to see you again, Nicky. Now, this is a strange experience, really, because I think this is the fourth one we've done of your albums as an album playback. And this time, it's just you. We've got no James Dean Bradfield.
Well, he's got to watch his voice at the moment.
He's poorly. The poor man. Gosh.
He has got to be, he's got to be careful at his age. It's like me with my knees.
I did wonder whether this would open up a new area of bitchiness that you could bring into the equation, but I didn't think it would be like that. And already you're straight in there.
No, it's what I was born to do, wasn't it? Talk, not play.
So it's interesting hearing Jackie Collins' Existential Question Time again, not least because I was asked that question, in effect, Daddy, what is a Sex Pistol, the other day. I was in Debenhams, of all places, and they had on sale, they had a God Save the Queen Sex Pistols t-shirt, and I was kind of drawn to it, like flies to, and was looking at it thinking, should I, shouldn't I, it's a bit naff, isn't it? And then my daughter said, what does it say, Daddy? And I say, it says God Save the Queen. And yeah, what does that bit there say? It says Sex Pistol. All right, what's that? And it was
serendipity.
It was quite strange. So it was kind of, when I was thinking, what should I play from Journal? No, and I was like, well, that's the one. It's got to be that one. Still pertinent, these questions.
Well, that's definitely, I remember saying to you at the time, the genius of Richey. It might sound kind of dated in some respects, but even something as obvious as NatWest Barclays Midlands Lloyds kind of all came true in the end. The whole system came crumbling down, and I was slightly naive, that song, but he could see into he was like J.G. Ballard, Richey. He did have a way of kind of transmitting into the future.
So this time round, you're back with a brand new album, and it's a complete departure in some ways, especially in comparison to Journal.
Yeah.
When did you start thinking about this record?
I mean, I'm always constantly thinking and theorising and stuff, but I think obviously because it was all Richey's lyrics for Journal, it did give me a time to start writing and theorising, and I did have a collection of words. I also had a couple of tunes. Golden Platitudes I wrote really probably 2 years ago, sort of as we were recording it. So, and I just said to James about Van Halen playing with the Supremes and, Queen doing ABBA songs, just the idea of mixing absolute melody in a rock context, which we've done before at Everything Must Go.
So Gone was in Uchuro, and albums like that as reference points, and in were Queen and ABBA. Yeah, well,
Richey's lyrics do demand a different kind of perspective musically, and I'm really thankful for that. I wish we could be that band more sometimes. It's a glorious feeling, but it does have its, obviously, it just has its limits because there's not much more we can do. But, and when I write the words, they just seem to lend a more, I guess you could call it commercial, but it's just more uplifting, I think.
So once you had that kind of idea in mind, when did you go into the studio to record the songs? When did you take time out to write them all, or what were you doing?
It was, once we kicked in, it was pretty prolific. James did a couple of acoustic demos of Billy and Balconies, Facing the Sun, Hazelton Avenue, a couple of ones which didn't make the cut, and I'd done Golden Platitudes, and I was working on Some Kind of Nothingness, and then I think September we started again, and we were finished by the end of June, and we demoed really well, though. We played the songs a lot, and there was a lot of pre-production involved, because we've got our own studio now, so it's just a giant garden shed where men can retreat from the world.
And so this was 2009 into 2010, so finished in effect in June 2010. So this is pretty fresh, really. It's
really fresh.
Yeah.
We came off the back of Journal. We had a few. We did an American tour, which was quite inspiration. North America. A couple of tunes were written in Canada. Hazelton Avenue is a place in Toronto, and The Descent was actually written on the bus in Vancouver. So I just think we reached a bit of a peak of our songwriting power since Send Away the Tigers, really. We do feel really that, not that we've mastered the art, but we are still mastering it, and we're still moving forward, and we're kind of very confident in each other.
Yeah. So you make it sound quite easy.
I mean, it should be easy by your 10th album. I mean, the last 3 weeks are always truly insane. Everyone, I was going mad about especially Some Kind of Nothingness, because it just felt like a baby to me. And James was nearly killing the producer like he usually does, and then even though he's his best friend. And
so Dave Erringer was the producer this time.
Yeah,
he's worked with you so many times.
Yeah, I mean, Loz, our engineer in Cardiff as well, did a hell of a lot of work, and so did we, really. So even the strings on Some Kind of Nothingness, I pretty much wrote those parts as well. It was very much a team effort, and Dave is brilliant at doing that. I think he understands our kind of, when we say we want to sound like that, he's the best person to get.
So when you say we want to sound like Van Halen meets the Supremes or Queen meets Sabbath, Dave gets the idea.
Yeah, a lot of people would just kind of laugh at that, like yourself. But I think he just understood that. You listen to Design for Life, and just the kind of the immense melody and grandeur of it grabs you straight away. And we just there's only so many times you can do it, but we felt there'd been a big enough gap.
Yeah. And so, was it all finished by June of this year?
It was.
All finished, mixed and everything, and recorded in Wales, but mixed in the States?
Yeah, Chris Ladalgi did it, who mixed Send Away the Tigers. It was an amazing mixer for us. He just makes everything glisten and puts everything in its place. He is a brilliant radio mixer. We wanted this record to be played on the radio, so we did everything in Cardiff in our own studio, all the strings, all the choirs, all the recording, which was great. Having Ian McCulloch in our own studio, having one of your heroes singing one of your songs in your own studio, 25 years after James and Sean and Richey saw him on stage. It was magical.
Yeah. No, well, we'll get to that very shortly. Yeah. And when you do the mixing, do you all three fly out to the States, or do you entrust it to the mixer?
Well, mixing used to be the most problematic issues with the band. I do think it's because it is the icing, it's the magical 10%, and we kind of believe that mixing is a really great art. And for years we probably got bogged down with it, but with Chris Ladalgi, with Send Away to the Tigers and this album, he just did them in LA and sent them over. And we found it a much more refreshing way of doing it, because 90% of every mix he did was stunning, and then we could just send him phone him up and say, can you just tweak this bit? And that was it.
So you're saying more bass, please, Chris.
I never say that. I'm just saying bring the words out.
Excellent. Well, we're going to hear the whole thing tonight, and Nicky's going to talk us through it track by track. It is the brand new album from Manic Street Preachers, Postcards from a Young Man, and we've got the first of those songs on the way next. It is Manic Street Preachers. It's not war, just the end of love. The opening track to the brand new album, Postcards from a Young Man. It is X-Posure. It's XFM. I'm John Kennedy, and with me tonight is Nicky Wire from the Manic Street Preachers, here to give us the lowdown on the album. And that track was the first single, our first taste of this new album, and I guess the first taste of this new sound, a sound I guess that you can, it's there in a lot of other, it's a familiar Manic Street Preachers sound, in a good way.
Yeah, no, someone described it as, as familiar and enchanting as your childhood, so I can live with that.
And I really like that kind of guitar line right at the beginning, and then when the strings come in, it's almost as if, that's what they're doing this time round.
Yeah, it was definitely like a signature tune. It did feel like, an interpretation of some people's vision of the band in a classic sense, the kind of everything must go vision, and we were completely comfortable with that. We didn't want to stray from that aesthetic really this time. We felt that out of Holy Bible came Everything Must Go, and sort of out of Journal for Plague Lovers would come something similar.
And what's It's Not War, Just the End of Love?
It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? That's what it is. It's amazing we can twist that into a pop rock classic.
That always seems to be the challenge, though, that you set yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the title I'd had, I thought it could be the title of an album, and I had the title for a long time. I ended up finishing the lyric in Glasgow. I think we'd sort of started demoing and got it, but we did a King Tut's anniversary this year for 20 years, the little club. So I finished it off up there, and then once it came together, it just seemed... apart from the title, it seemed obviously like a single.
Yeah. And lyrically, what are you getting at there?
Well, I guess it's a song of duality, really. But the main thrust is, it may not be war like it was when we first started, i.e., ultimate destruction of everything. But, it's still the end of love. We're still back to kind of say who we are. We might have mellowed, but we haven't mellowed that much.
So you're still fighting?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a handicap at times, I think it's, especially for me, my pettiness and my rage, but I think then again it's probably sustained. If you haven't got anything to fight against, then I don't know how you carry on.
Well, it's probably why you're here 10 years, 10 albums down the line, and still with lots to say and lots to get across.
Yeah. In
whatever way you can.
Well, that when we first started, it was all about saying we're going to be the biggest band in the world. It wasn't. We never wanted to be a cult indie band,
Yeah.
Even though we became.
Postcards from a Young Man is the title track, and it's the next song on the album. And this has a kind of Mott the Hoople swagger to it. And you mentioned Queen earlier.
Yeah.
And there's some stirring strings in this. There's a massive choir at the end. You will not give up. You will not give in. Is this the fighting spirit that the Manic Street Preachers is known for? Yeah,
I mean, it's almost... Embarrassing is not the word, but they are emotions that sometimes you don't want to display. Because they're kind of earnest and, passionate and all that. And sometimes, as a band, you'd love to be kind of cold and icy and Joy Division-esque. But, for us, it suited us. This track has brought the album together. It was one of the last tracks written, and James came in with two different versions of it. And me and Sean straight away thought that this version was fantastic. And it felt like a summation. The postcards themselves are all the postcards I've kept from Richey and James and Sean and my mum. My mum used to have this amazing trick when I was young of whenever anyone played in Cardiff in St David's Hall, she'd just pretend I was ill. So send them a postcard and say, "Oh, my son's really ill. He can't make it tonight. Could you sign this postcard?" And I've got these ones off Morrissey saying "Get well soon." Bobby Gillespie saying "Love from Jesus Christ" when he was in the Mary chain.
Wow.
I've got tons of them. So all those postcards I've kept.
What a great mum.
She is, yes. She's fantastic. And so I've kept all those, and it seemed like they were so tactile and important to me. I must have kept them for a reason. So it kind of brought the album together.
Yeah. And so where did you go to university?
I went in Swansea.
Swansea. So you weren't that far away.
But there was no... We're talking, to use a phone then. You had to get a green phone card and shove it in a machine. And it was... Communication was different then.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but there was no mobile phones. There was no internet. There was plain old writing. And it was a joy to... We used to, customise them and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, postcards were a big thing of my youth.
Yeah.
I'd kind of forgotten that till you mentioned that. Yeah.
I just thought, is anyone going to keep an email for 25 years like I've kept these, really?
And do you keep them in a box? Or
yes.
You do? Right, excellent.
There's this amazing shop in Tenby in West Wales, because I spend a lot of time in West Wales for inspiration, and it's a complete health hazard, the shop. You literally pull one book out and it all falls down. It's like a daddist statement, really. But all the postcards in there as well, I was buying a lot of them, and it just... I don't know, it just felt the tactile nature of... It's not saying the present or the future is awful, but it is saying that I think people are missing out on something precious from the past.
And what about the line about life sucks your principles away?
Yeah, well, it's not like a line about being on a corporate music label at all. That's the easiest part of life, I think. It's just life in general, that you start off. It goes with the idea. There is a faintly nostalgic feel to the record, and just the kind of anger and the absolute energy and love we had of being in a band at the start, to kind of not let that be eroded. It takes a lot of effort, really.
Yeah. And this is it, postcards.
It's like you sifting through all those millions of demos you get, and you're there thinking, is this really worth it? But you come across a gem, and obviously it is.
Yeah, no, exactly, good point. How many hours a day do I do this? Postcards from a Young Man, the Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure, XFM. You're listening to X-Posure, it is XFM, and that is the Manic Street Preachers, Some Kind of Nothingness from the brand new album, Postcards from a Young Man. We're doing the X-Posure album playback treatment tonight with Nicky himself, talking us through it track by track, and that song features the one, the only, Mr. Ian McCulloch. And you were saying, Nicky, that the first gig that Sean... James and Richey all went to was Echo and the Bunnymen.
Yeah, Ocean Rain, I think 84.
Right.
Ocean Rain 2 was either 84 or 85. Bristol Colston Hall. I mean, I was such a mummy's boy. I never went to any gigs. Really.
How old would they have been at that point?
Probably either the last year comp or the fourth year of comp. So 14 or 13 or 15.
Right.
Like
And they'd have had to travel to Bristol.
Yeah.
So that would have been a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was like a rites of passage, and stuff. No one, obviously, you're relying on lifts and buses and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was the Bunnymen at their peak. I think Ocean Rain is it was a big, the orchestration, I think, is the greatest ever on Ocean Rain for a rock record. So we did use that as an influence.
And had you met Ian McCulloch down the line at some point, or over the years?
Yeah, we have bumped into him at festivals, and I think when James used to live in Notting Hill, there was a boozer that they used to both frequent. I think Ian McCulloch famously went up to him and, I like you, you're good, I like that Design for Life, you sing like Harry Seacombe. He meant it in a nice way.
Yeah. Well, I always remember, and interestingly, at the height of their fame, I mean, he would choose interesting things as his own inspirations. So, say, asked, what was the best record of the year in 1980 or 81 or something, he'd say ABBA, and things like that, which at the time seemed quite a contrary thing to do, and yet he was just listening to it in terms of the music and the song and what he thought was good or bad.
He used to do it with Frank Sinatra a lot as well. He'd say, I want to be the singer as good as Frank and stuff. And, we've always had that trait in us as well, where it's like at the start when we used to say how much we like Kylie and something, it was sort of, or even Guns N' Roses, and, it wasn't that cool when we came about to say how much we loved them. And I think we've always been pretty open, and you kind of judge something. You can't fail to bow down to a glorious pop record. I think it's still to this day, whether it's Lady Gaga or whatever, sometimes you just have to say, look, it's just a brilliant piece of pop art.
And so with Some Kind of Nothingness, when you'd written that, had you always thought you'd heard Ian McCulloch's voice in there somewhere? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote the lyrics and the music, because there's my kind of, I don't think I'll ever write a better piece of music. Or maybe even words. I put everything into it, and it was written as a duet. I think initially we probably did think of Nina, because Your Love Alone works so well.
So that's Nina Passon.
Cardigans. From the Cardigans, and but then we just started thinking, our tradition is to do it with girls, but perhaps we should, try it with a man. And Ian McCulloch was the first idea then, just to have the richness, of his sort of baritone. And like he said to James, I'll be the boy, you be the girl. He has got a wicked sense of humour.
So what did you do to say, Ian, look, there's a pint of Guinness with your name on it. If you just
something like that.
If you can come down, you can drink it and then sing this song.
Yeah, I mean, we sent him the track, and he genuinely said, yeah, it's got real soul. It sounds like To Sir With Love. Well, I like that. I think that's, like you said again, that's him just referencing a pure kind of pop soul classic. So. And he just really liked the kind of truth in the lyrics. He was down our studio all day. It was quite a long day in many respects, but he put a huge amount of effort in.
And would you have to discuss the meaning of the song or anything like that with him?
I did chat with him about it, yeah. But he just said, I'm searching for truth in the words. And this was in between doing impressions of David Bowie and Stan Boardman and drinking a bottle of brandy. It was a real educational day.
Excellent. The kind of day you want, really. If you're going to get your hero in the studio with you, you want that kind of experience.
Yeah, it was, like I said to you, it was beyond kind of luck and fate. It was just, it was hard to take in, really. It's because you feel, when you're seeing someone, you feel really young, don't you? When you're 15 and you're looking at one of your eyes, you think, God, I'll never be as old as him. And he's actually not that much older. No. He's 10 years older or maybe less. Yeah, and you've caught up all of a sudden. It's quite a strange feeling.
Yeah. So from Some Kind of Nothingness to The Descent, pages 1 and 2. And this is something I thought I'd never hear, which is the Manic Street Preachers, kind of like the Beatles or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a Beatles fanatic, and it's never come through, because I think James is right. There's a few bands like the Pistols, the Beatles, maybe Joy Division, we've always maybe haven't sounded like, because we just think they are the sort of pinnacle. It's hard to sound like them without caricature, and but on this album I think it comes through with the deep cellos. I mean, James will always say it's Yellow, not the Beatles, because Yellow was his first love.
Right.
He thinks Jeff Lynne is an absolute genius, so I convinced him it's like Free as a Bird, which Jeff Lynne produced.
And what's The Descent all about?
I came together really quickly on the tour bus in Vancouver, sort of hunky-dory, bit of hunky-dory Bowie in there. I just had a poem and James had a melody, and he was just playing the acoustic, and I just literally shoved it over to him. And within 10 minutes, the song was done. It took a bit longer to record, but it was just probably one of the most effortless songs we've ever done. You can hear that. There's a kind of joy to it, I think. There's, it reminds me a little bit of early Oasis as well, in terms of whatever or something. We weren't even shying away from that or anything.
Yeah. And this is it. The Descent, pages 1 and 2. Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure. It is Manic Street Preachers with Hazelton Avenue on X-Posure XFM. It's track 5 from the brand new album, Postcards from a Young Man. It's out this week, and getting the X-Posure album playback treatment tonight with Nicky giving us the lowdown track by track. And I guess that continues a kind of Jeff Lynne-esque quality to it after the descent into Hazelton Avenue. And you were saying earlier that Hazelton Avenue is a particular place in
Toronto,
in Canada.
Yeah, I was wandering around, and it's just one of those days on tour that you just appreciate so much, the idea of solitude, kind of internalising everything in a happy way, of just finding a great record shop, having a great cup of coffee, find a copy of The Guardian. And I know John Niven was with us. He was doing a piece for The Independent, and he was just such great company as well, and who wrote Kill Your Friends, John. And everything, the gig was amazing, and you just think, it's that like dilemma sometimes, is that, are you only truly yourself when you're on your own? Is it the natural state of being? Is solitude perfection? You realise it's not after a while, but there's a romantic notion to it, and it's such a blissful song. I mean, it's one of the sweetest, most saccharine things we've ever done. At one point we were thinking, is there too much melody in this? But I think it's a gorgeous piece of music, and I do think it's one of the best riffs since Motorcycle that James has sort of come up with.
It's interesting because you were saying that the album has a kind of nostalgia to it, and that song particularly has a nostalgic feel to it, and yet really in a way, although you're singing about or writing about something that was recent or current to what you were doing, so it wasn't as if Hazelton Avenue was a wonderful place from 1979 or something. No, but no, it's the place you happen to be hanging out there.
Yeah, and like I said, the nostalgia thing, we couldn't. It'd been wrong for us to try and hide it, and put some dubstep grooves in there or something.
Auto-intoxication is the next song. What is auto-intoxication? Because I think it's a physical condition, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Mishima suffered from it. It's just sort of self-poisoning of the body. I kind of got I got a thing called Gilbert's syndrome, where my liver doesn't function properly, so therefore it poisons me because it can't break down a certain enzyme or something. I turn yellow and I can't drink anymore. Really
so you can't drink at all?
No, I've had I had a really bad 6 months of health, and I've had to knock it on the head because it does bring it on, which is pretty hard, I must admit, especially on stage with that lovely bottle of champagne I used to have. So that seemed like a great title. I actually wrote the lyric for the Klaxons. We were doing a festival in Hungary, and this is when I was drinking, and remember we would just chat. I'd got talking to them because I kind of admire them. I think they're an ideas band, which is really important. And we started talking about this book called The Coming Insurrection by the Invisible Committee. And we were both hammered out of our skulls, so they might not even remember it because they're a lot tougher boys than me. But I thought, all right, I think I'll write them some words. But then nothing ever came from it. So James came up with, I guess is the most jagged one on the album. And John Cale plays put some weird noises and a bit of piano on there.
Right.
Another one of our heroes.
Yeah. And is John somebody you've met a few times? I mean, is there some kind of Welsh connection between anybody from Wales who goes out into the greater world and achieves things and returns, and then suddenly, hey, we're all on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think with John, he made it. And let's face it, whether you like the Velvets or not, they probably are the coolest band of all time. They might not be the best, but they are the coolest. And to have someone from the same kind of upbringing as us in Wales, who I still can't figure out how he ended up in the Velvets, Yeah. And James has worked with him quite a bit over the years. James has done a film called Beautiful Mistake. He did a Nico tribute, and John is not a sort of arm round the shoulder kind of guy, but I think we respect him immensely. I think he is the one person we met in music I can honestly say is a musical genius. He can sort of go on about John Cage and Stockhausen, but somehow turn it into pop or rock music as well. I think he operates on a different level musically to anyone we've ever known. You know, it's pretty spectacular, his knowledge of music, and it came from such a kind of Welsh upbringing and a sort of choral and churchy. So he's if there is I think he's the greatest living Welsh musician.
Excellent, big statement from yourself. Yeah. And so did he just come down for the day or potted about and then left?
John actually did it in LA. No.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Jim spoke to him. I mean, to be honest, we just weren't expecting anything off him. It was a real punt. I just thought, I said, James, come on, you know him, pull it off. I was like, I've given you Duff and Mac, come on. And he actually sent an email back saying to the studio, he did say, I like this track, which really blew us away. He's just not prone to doing that.
Yeah.
I'd love him to produce this one day in some sort of way, because people forget he produced Patti Smith, The Mondays, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he's produced some interesting things, or people have brought him together with people thinking that it could produce something interesting.
Yes.
And often, but particularly I think in the 70s, there were lots of personality clashes led by substance abuse that would lead to strange situations. But some interesting results too.
Yeah, so who knows?
Interesting. Well, this is it. Auto Intoxication. It's Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure XFM. It is the Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure XFM with Auto Intoxication from the brand new album, which has just come out this week. Postcards from a Young Man. And it's an interesting sound, Auto Intoxication. It has, I don't know, it sounds like Silver Machine by Hawkwind in places. And
my dad said that.
Yeah. We're on the same plane. But there's a kind of quadrophenia feel to it.
The chorus is very quadrophenia.
Yeah. It's,
designed to be that way. It's just nearest I'll ever come to John Entwistle, that's for sure.
And it kind of sounds as if it's been recorded in the 70s anyway. In a way, it has that kind of sound. I don't know how.
Well, we did want to make a record, sort of classically recorded 70s style, sort of end of the 60s, from Abbey Road to say where it ends with Never Mind the Bollocks. That kind of golden period for engineering, I think, for sounds of records are just sometimes better than the songs themselves. And but then we wanted to add, a sheen to it, especially with Crystal Adalgy. That's what he gives us. But it was very much following the principles of kind of that 70s recording. Everything had to have a point. We didn't put strings and choirs on there just to fill it out. They have to have their own melody,
And there's some strings on this next song, and in fact the whole album does sound very, very 70s, as you say.
Yeah.
Golden Platitudes is the next song, and I think you said this was the oldest song on the record that you had written around the time of Journal of Plague Lovers being recorded. And so this has another kind of Beatles, Jeff Lynne type string arrangement going on. And
I was writing it in my home in Newport in South Wales. I was writing it on acoustic guitar, and the lyrics just really flowed. I was obsessed with the chord sequence of Take That, Back for Good. And the verse is sort of like that, and I was just going around it and then mutating it on my crappy little acoustic, and it just grew into, lyrically, it's probably my favourite of the whole record. And then I just said to James, we got to make this, it's got to sound like the Beatles on steroids. And it did actually want, in a perfect world, I was supposed to interview Paul McCartney for a magazine last year. This is when I got ill. I had another one of these bouts of illness, and I had to blow him out, which was just terrible. I had all these questions. I was going to give him the track and ask him to play piano, but I don't know if he would have. But we supported them. Bizarrely, he still, even though I'd cancelled the interview, we supported him at the Millennium Stadium. So now the record's finished.
In Cardiff?
Yeah, in Cardiff. And he was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he was just... For a 68-year-old man to be doing Oblada next to Helter Skelter, if that is the most genius pop thing I've ever seen in my life.
And did you get to meet him?
Yeah, we did. I had a really nice chat with him after talking to him about the bass on Paperback Writer, because it's one of the great bass lines ever. And, it was pretty inspiring. I think him and Paul Weller, Weller's albums at 50, his last two records have been two of his greatest ever records. I mean... It's stunning. So I think they've given us inspiration that as you get older you can still do it.
Yeah, totally. Great, excellent. And this is it, Golden Platitudes on X-Posure XFM. It's the Manic Street Preachers. It is the Manic Street Preachers with Golden Platitudes. Nicky Wire is here. It's an X-Posure album playback. I'm John Kennedy. And Golden Platitudes, Nicky, is aimed squarely at New Labour, or the Labour movement of the last 20 years and your disillusionment with it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those few people that still I'd like to believe that politics can still make a difference. It's not just me, stereotypically saying all politicians are awful and all that, because I do think some good can come out of it, but it was just hard to stomach. It was all, there's a couple of songs on the album that deal with that, with the idea that the only nationalised industries we have left in this country are the banks, and for that to happen under a Labour government, it's more than surreal. It's just truly unimaginable. We could have saved a lot of industries, and we were constantly told by the bankers, by the politicians, that we cannot subsidise steel, we cannot subsidise cars, we cannot subsidise coal. And then the bankers come along and say, can we be subsidised? There's a crisis. And we just proceed the biggest bailout in economic history. And while everyone else's jobs disappeared, we propped that up. And for that to happen under the auspice of a Labour government, it's just not right.
In addition, where do I go from there? It's hard to know how to follow that up, because obviously it could be either hours of discussion, or it's interesting. But in a way, you can draw a parallel between that kind of disillusionment and that kind of disappointment, but still keeping the wish and desire to keep fighting on and hoping and looking for something better to come up, but some kind of answer to come together. And you could draw a parallel, if you wanted to, which I'm going to do now, between that and your attitude as a band and the way that you approach these things, and that you're not going to be kind of dismissed or beaten down by this. You're going to keep at it until you keep that spirit alive. Really.
We do feel that way, and I'm still compelled to believe that there is another form of politics which will come upon us, which will do some good. Because even under Labour, my big bugbear was that all the wealth they generated to spend on health and education was basically from the city. It was never to do with manufacturing or what you'd call proper jobs. And it was all, it was just call centres, coffee shops and free Wi-Fi, and it was always going to come tumbling down, really. And that deals me a great sadness, really, because as someone who's watching his own industry implode slowly, it just seems like anything we've ever been good at, we're happy just to throw away.
And then they give us Golden Platitudes
to lift us up.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. I think I found it is the next song, and this I guess is a brighter thing.
Yes,
and has a nice kind of nod to Rod Stewart and the Faces at the beginning, a kind of Maggie May-esque.
Very Maggie May.
Now it's not a mandolin. What is
it's
it?
A mandola.
Mandola.
James tells me I have to mention.
What's the difference between a mandola and a mandolin?
I have no idea.
Right.
Sounds exactly the same. Not say I said.
And did James play it?
Yeah, of course he did. He really dug in, and the drums are amazing on this. They're so Kenny Jones, Maggie May. People think a halftime Faces thing is, it's just but that is some of the hardest, classy, swinging stuff. I could listen to. We just got Sean to play more, even though he nailed it really quickly. We were like, I'll do another one, because me and James were just enjoying it so much. And James wrote the lyrics for this. It's a really, really odd. There's a lot of kind of serendipity and fate with this record, because we were on a plane coming back from a festival, and Mike Scott from the Waterboys came up to us. James used to absolutely love Pagan Place and Girl Called Johnny and stuff. And he had written Mike Scott a letter when he was 16, and he'd actually burnt the edges of the letter. Mike Scott came up to us on a plane sort of 25 years later, wherever it is, and he just said, James, by the way, you could tell James was a bit nervous, what's going on here. He said, yeah, I've still got that letter you sent me.
That's amazing.
And it was genuinely absolutely gobsmacked. And so it does have a Waterboys feel as well, the song. I think, it's got a bit of a Waterboys thing going there. And James had a hangover in Tenby. I think he was on a stag do, and he just walked up, he was strolling on the beach, and he came up with a melody. And I always want him to write words, because he, Ocean Spray in his solo record, he is very capable of writing good lyrics. And so I refused to have anything to do with it. I made sure that he wrote them all.
Yeah. Excellent. And this is it. I think I found it. It's the Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure, XFM. You're listening to X-Posure. It is XFM. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Manic Street Preachers with A Billion Balconies Facing the Sun. It's track 9 from the brand new album, Postcards from a Young Man, which has just come out this week. And we've got a young man in the studios with
Youngish.
me. Youngish. Nicky himself is here, and Duff McKagan is on that track. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
So you were saying earlier that you delivered Duff, and so James had to deliver John Cale. How did you deliver Duff?
Well, he gave us at the Mojo Awards, we had like a Maverick Award, and Duff did this amazing speech, like he genuinely seemed to know about us. And he gave us the award, and we talked, and James really bonded with him, to be fair to James. It was just as much him sort of calling on Duff. James played it so easy with him live. And I was looking for a way out not to play bass on the track because I'm so lazy. But it did really feel like Duff could bring something, because his style is really unique, his bass playing style. He still uses a plecky. It's really constant. The timing is unbelievably perfect. And I only use my fingers anymore. I never ever use plectrum. So the song has kind of got these brilliant Sean's sort of Fleetwood Mac Go Your Own Way drums, and James, there's 2 stunning guitar solos on this, sort of just Lindsey Buckingham at his best. And we just thought Duff would be perfect. And he phoned us up and went, of course, I know you guys need me, really. He really is a sweetheart. You couldn't wish to meet a nicer man in rock and roll.
Fantastic. And lyrically, what are you thrusting at with this?
Well, this is where the album does, from Golden Platitudes, and then these last 3 or 4, it does get more political. It's very much sort of, it's a phrase used by J.G. Ballard. And it is the idea of being sucked into the vortex of the digital world of virtuality. And, you know, the idea that virtuality may be the next stage of evolution, really, that perhaps there's no point trying to rail against it, because, you know, it's just what's going to happen. Evolution takes many forms, and perhaps the living of virtual lives is the next wave of it.
Interesting. So next up, we've got All We Make Is Entertainment, and I guess in a way that continues what you were saying after Golden Platitudes about how, you know, industry is dead, your own industry, the music industry is in decline and on its way out, and you know, yet that's the only thing that we do in this country anymore.
Yes.
All we make is entertainment. And that's on its way out as well. Yeah,
and, you know, it's the one thing we still do well, but even that we don't seem to care that much about. And the kind of, it's a really mundane thing to talk about in some respects, but the selling off of Cadbury's, you know, one of the best chocolate makers in the world, to sell it to Kraft, who just make some of the worst products in the world. Even their cheese is not cheese. And, you know, once again, it was that thing where we can't interfere with industry. We can't say, we can't stop the takeover. Well, unless it's the banks, you know. It's just the idea they made up absolute rules for everything, and then they bypassed all those rules for the financial systems. It just seemed inherently wrong.
All we make is entertainment. Manic Street Preachers, X-Posure, XFM. The future has always been here forever. It is Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure XFM, and that is track 11. We just got one more track after this. It's Postcards from a Young Man, the brand new album. It's just come out this week. Nicky has been talking us through it track by track, and you sing that one, Nicky.
I do.
Your chance to step up to the microphone. I think you sound like Howard Devoto on that song.
I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, has that kind of sound to it. Or maybe Tom Verlaine slightly?
Even better.
Yeah?
No, you know, it's a demo I had kind of worked on quite a lot, and when it came to doing the vocal, Jim started singing it, and he just said, look, this is not working, your vocal is perfect for the song. It's kind of like the June Brides played by the Rolling Stones, you know. It's got a great cowbell on there, it's got Sean playing trumpet, which we always think is a bit of a lucky charm, with Ocean Spray and Kevin Carter, and it's another one of those things where me and James are always say, you know, do another take, Sean, because we just love listening. And he had to get his lip back in. I mean, it is a hard thing when you put a trumpet down. It's just weird watching sort of cheeks starting to inflate with all this air and stuff. So we'd love him to play more, you know. And it's just a really kind of nice, it's the Grail Marcus idea, really, of the endless connections, that, you know, everything is complete repetition. It just kind of shows itself in different ways.
Interesting. And then from that to the last track, which is Don't Be Evil, which I guess is a more straight-ahead rocker. Probably this more straight-ahead rock thing on the record. It's more raw-sounding too, more raggedy. Yeah. Is there a particular message you're trying to get across with Don't Be Evil?
Well, obviously it's the corporate catchphrase of Google, which is... I mean, the song does have a sense of humour. It's not like we're pretending we can stop the endless rise of Google, but it is the most insane kind of catchphrase ever, isn't it? Don't be evil.
I wasn't aware that was their catchphrase.
Yeah, it's their corporate kind of mantra.
Yeah.
It's like, really? You've never done anything bad? You've never hosted? You've never been you've never given in to the Chinese government? Yeah, I don't know. It just felt... but it is a real kind of... It's not us pretending we can do anything about it. It is a proper ragged glory incarnation of the Manics. Because it was called Don't Be Evil, James wanted to make it sound a bit like See No Evil, so the opening riff is influenced by that.
Right,
and
so See No Evil by television.
By television, yeah. And I think we definitely used the Albini aesthetic on this. It was a one-take wonder. It was pretty much the first or second time we played it. So it is very, very raw. I think James then redid the vocal, but it's just a proper Manics blast with a Stooges guitar solo, and like I said, there's some heavy doses of irony involved.
And the line "Fill the world with your own importance," is that a dig at people who are blogging away and they're putting their lives up there for everybody to read. Yet
it is. It's just the idea that the absolute sort of democratization of opinion just doesn't have to be factual or have any knowledge behind it. And there's just so many lies about me on the internet, and I'm nothing really in the scheme of things. And it's just like the Wild West. It's ungovernable, and that's some people just literally think that's just the way it should be. I still find it pretty disturbing that opinion has just barely any truth in it. It just kind of scares me, really. Someone told me about something the other day that some website or something. There was a couple of people on there that. Saying that, there's auto-tune all over some kind of nothingness, and I was thinking, were you in the studio? How do you know this then? And you can hear it everywhere, and I can tell you for sure, if anyone ever tried to put auto-tune on James's voice, he would literally tear their head off.
Yeah.
And everyone knows this in the studio. It would never, ever happen. But for them, it's become a truth. And that is just deeply unsatisfying and deeply wrong. I mean, I know it's petty and it's pointless. It doesn't. I don't engage with this stuff. People just give me information at times and say, "Do you want to do anything about it?" And it's just, you feel like all we can do really is write the odd song about it.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And this is it, Nicky. Brilliant to have you here. Thanks so much.
Always a pleasure, sir.
This is Don't Be Evil. It's Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure, XFM.